We often debate about who really controls the United States, the most powerful country on the planet. There are dozens of views and conspiracy theories, but can we ever know the truth about who are America's real puppet masters? This special report answers the $1,000,000 question. To know who controls a nation, look for who controls the economy. So, who controls the US economy today? Three shady American companies called BlackRock, Vanguard Group, and State Street Corporation. They are the world's three most powerful asset management companies. They control 90% of what are called index funds, and through that, they control 90% of corporate America. So the cat is out of the bag. Unseen faces and undisclosed families who own these three companies are the true controllers of modern day US. Thank you for tuning in. This is Nadeem. You're watching Empire Diaries. Let's find out what these companies actually do, what index funds are, and why the world knows so little about the real owners of the US. The US is a de facto empire. It is the most intimidating country of our times. It is a military bully that fights dirty wars without consulting anybody. US troops are perpetually deployed all over the world. The US government alone decides what is a rogue nation and what is a democracy. Most importantly, America is the epicenter of the world's biggest, wealthiest, and most powerful multinational companies. Most Indians today are completely unaware of their actual relationship with the US, especially corporate America. Thousands of US companies have taken full control of the Indian DNA, just like they have done on all continents. It is never acknowledged as an economic invasion and a master plan to loot Bharat's financial resources. But corporate America is doing precisely that. An enormous number of US multinationals are soaking up money from the Indian economy at an alarming rate. In this context, it's important for every Indian, not just every American, to know who pulls the strings of the US economy. Forget celebrity CEOs, rockstar brands, secretive elites, and Silicon Valley. At the top of the power pyramid are three asset management companies: BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. Before we go into what they do, let's quickly understand how rich and powerful they are through some numbers. First in our lineup is BlackRock. The New York company controls assets worth $9.4 trillion. Want an idea of what that amount means? $9.4 trillion is way higher than the combined assets of Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Gautam Adani, and Mukesh Ambani. Next, there's Vanguard, headquartered in Pennsylvania. It controls assets worth $7.7 trillion. The third member of the gang is Boston-based State Street, a financial player since 1792. These three companies literally own the corporate landscape of the US. If you put together the stocks they manage, the three firms have a combined $11 trillion in their pockets. That figure is more than all the sovereign wealth funds combined. They are the major shareholders in 40% of all publicly listed US companies. In the S&P 500 Financial Market Index, they are the dons. They influence 90% of the big shots like Apple, Microsoft, and Coca-Cola. Now let's understand what these three super companies do for a living. They are basically asset management companies, or AMCs. What is an AMC? It's a company that collects money from clients and then on their behalf it uses the money to buy, sell, and manage assets or stakes in profitable companies. In simple words, it is a high-profile dalal or agent which helps clients manage their wealth and invest in profitable assets and bonds. Now there are various types of asset management companies. The traditional ones are those that help clients buy, sell, and manage assets of specific companies. Those asset managers are called active fund managers. We will call them traditional fund managers to keep things simple. You have heard of many major traditional fund management companies such as Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Citi, Credit Suisse, Allianz, and Fidelity. They manage portfolios of clients who invest in specific stocks. Let's now come to the big three: BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. They are a completely different type of asset management companies. They don't deal in traditional funds. Instead, they manage index funds on behalf of their clients. What are index funds? How are they different from traditional funds? We never hear about it in the daily news. How come it is so important that most people haven't even heard of it? Let's understand what an index fund is. It is a new type of mutual fund or bond or stock which is designed to mimic the performance of the entire financial market. In simple words, an index fund is something that does not represent any particular company or a particular set of companies. Instead, it represents the entire financial market index, such as the S&P 500 index. The S&P 500 is a stock market index that tracks the stock performance of 500 biggest companies listed on stock exchanges in the US. Now, when you own an index fund, whatever happens to the financial market overall, say if it goes up or down overall, that gets reflected in your index fund's performance. If the financial market index goes up or down, your index fund's value gets adjusted accordingly. So if the overall market crashes, your index fund also crashes. If the overall market shoots up, your index fund shoots up by the same percentage. In more simple words, your index fund is a small collection of stakes in all the 500 companies in the financial market. I gave you this detailed picture because it matters to you. BlackRock, Vanguard and State Street sit on top of the biggest American firms whose brands are household names in Bharat. The question is, these big three companies were nowhere in the scene about 10-15 years ago. How did they suddenly become so big and powerful? How did they capture the US economy without most people even noticing it? The answer lies in the 2008 financial crisis, a crisis that the US gifted to the whole world. 2008 was a turning point for the biggest investors in Wall Street. When the financial crisis happened, big investors were shaken. They were scared. They panicked and started running away from traditional funds. They started pulling their money out of traditional assets and purchased index funds. Why did they go for index funds? Because they found index funds were much safer and also much cheaper to manage compared to traditional funds. This is when BlackRock, Vanguard and State Street stepped in. They capitalized on the mood. They offered wealthy clients and major investors their services of managing their index funds. In one clean sweep, dozens of traditional asset managers lost their customers and therefore lost their influence over the US economy. Almost overnight, big three companies took control of most of the index funds out there. From a slightly democratic scene where dozens of asset managers had somewhat equal market share, corporate America switched to pure monopoly. Only the three index fund managers captured total control over the corporate landscape. How? By managing 90% of the stakes in the 500 companies through index funds, they went into a position to dictate terms to them. The numbers will give you a clear picture of how enormous the change was. From 2007 to 2016, traditional funds saw an exit of $1,200 billion. All that money went into the purchase of index funds, which saw a total inflow of $1,400 billion. From 2017 onwards, the inflow of investments into index funds went up at an even faster rate. Guess who received most of the investment money? You got it. The big three. The irony is, BlackRock, Vanguard and State Street dominate the US economy just like the way the US government and the US military try to dominate the rest of the world. The big three are the bouncers. They decide who gets into the corporate party. They decide who can own a stake in which major company. They influence policy in some of the biggest companies on earth. For those Americans who have an imperialist mindset, who support their government's foreign interventions, it's like a taste of their own medicine. Their own corporate landscape is now in the hands of three corporate interventionists. From outside, the US corporate sector looks balanced and democratic. In reality, 90% of the investor class and 90% of the owners of the most popular brands are puppets of their new masters, BlackRock, Vanguard and State Street. There's an old saying, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. It's the same story with the big three. They don't just own everything, they influence everything. They can pull the strings in the boardrooms of the biggest brands. If BlackRock, Vanguard and State Street want to crash an industry, they can do it. If they want to create an industry, they can do that as well. It's a concern for Indians who live in a country that has been a target for foreign corporations and foreign corporate families for centuries, especially those from the Anglo-American West. If the big three can turn the US economy into their playground, they can someday soon do that with the Indian economy, or perhaps they are even doing that now. From aviation to technology, from food to banking, from medicines to entertainment, the big three controls almost every industry under the sun. BlackRock has 89 offices in 38 countries. Vanguard has operations in over 20 countries. State Street has at least 29 global offices. The bad news for colonial targets like Bharat is all three are expanding very fast. We don't know which of the world's most influential business families own these three giants, but what we do know is that they are getting bigger on the Indian horizon. After all, you often hear Western powers saying aloud that the Indian economy is the world's fastest growing market. Should we allow another replay of the movie called East India Company? Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to press the bell icon so that you get notified whenever we publish a report. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Send get updates to 98210 for news and analysis you are not told. Visit our website empirediaries.com for in-depth reports and columns. Stay informed, stay awake, and think critically.